Welcome back to the Fear
and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies,
and just a little bit of beer.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Seamus.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
Before we get into tonight's episode, we want to remind all of those listening on Apple Podcasts to drop us a 5-star review. It helps us grow as a podcast and build our audience. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, follow us, and don't forget to share with friends and family who might have a little bit of the strange in them as well.
And while you're on those socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, be sure to find us, Fear and Beer Pod. Give us a like, share, and you can always message us. We love to interact with all you guys.
Bum-bum! Is that what Netflix sounds like? Bum-bum? Or is that something? Dun-dun. 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 Dun-dun.
Well, here we are talking about Netflix properties. For all of us seeing us on YouTube, we are moving a little bit closer towards you. Trying to get a little bit more in frame. We're playing with a couple different things.
I look fatter now than
That's why I wear the black t-shirt.
Yeah, see, you're smart. I wear the fucking different colors and I look fat as hell. And I work out, I swear to God. Like, I work out every day and I still look fat. But, you know.
That's why I just don't try anymore.
That's what happens when you hit your mid-30s. So any of y'all who aren't 30 yet, this is what happens. You become fat.
You
There's
drink
nothing
beer
you can do
and you
about
make
it.
a
And you drink
podcast.
plenty of beer, right. I mean, look how round I look in that picture. Gross. I digress. I don't want to look fat. Yes, Netflix. Talking about Netflix properties.
Netflix,
and
yes.
What do we think is going to happen with HHN? Because we all know that they have a wonderful working relationship with the service.
Yeah.
I would love to know, not to get off topic, I would love to know like what that partnership looks like.
Yeah,
like,
behind the scenes,
like
how
what,
they're
like,
talking and
yeah,
shit.
like what determines what they get to pick and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
It'd be fun to dive in backstage, and if you can't really see on the TV, we are watching.
Yeah,
I just threw on Stranger Things, the season finale of 3, the battle at the Starcourt Mall, just because this is a fun episode. I like this.
Probably the best episode in the series.
It is fun, and we are going to be talking about Stranger Things, which I coordinated. I rocked our little
I did not.
Fear and
I have
Beer,
a-
Fear and Stranger Things shirt
pulled
that
that up for you.
we designed up earlier. But this is Fear and Beer. We discussed a little bit of the fear. Let's get into some of the beer, which Seamus provided
finally
for us.
provided beer
He
in,
got
like,
us a beer,
3
and this is
months.
one I've been wanting to try
I feel not cheap.
forever. And this is like... This episode is like the perfect episode of like what we've been trying to do for 70 some odd episodes, where we like
Have like a legitimate
theme
like,
towards our beer.
themed,
'Cause
yeah.
when we first came up with this, we're like, you know what, this would be great. Like, we're gonna get a beer that's themed towards the episode. Like, we'll match it some way. We'll tie it in, and like 20 episodes in, we're like, oh shit, like there's only so many beers we can do. Like, we just gotta stretch at this point. So sometimes they fit, sometimes they don't. This week they do very much so. They fit. And this is, again, I think we're going back to Hidden Springs Ale Works.
We are hitting up
Love it. Favorite brewery, I think.
We're hitting up Hidden Springs again. It's probably
It's up there.
it's probably my favorite brewery as of right now. Obviously, we have a ton of it. It helps that it's local. So to us, it's local. It's in Tampa.
Yeah.
We've said it a million times. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about them because they know how much we love them, and you know,
But this
you guys know
one,
how much we love them. But
this one is called Where's Barb? It's a strawberry and rhubarb pie inspired sour ale. So if you
I'm
have,
kind of excited about.
I don't know if you have more info on that, but I'm just gonna go show off.
Yeah,
the
I'm going to show the
artwork.
can. I don't know a ton of information, but I'll look it up. But basically, I mean, if you don't know why this is relevant to tonight's episode, y'all need to start watching some Netflix.
So hard getting.
But obviously, Where's Barb is a reference to Stranger Things because hashtag Barb's alive, as far as I'm concerned. She went into the other place or whatever they call it because I haven't watched the Upside Down. I haven't watched Stranger Things in in a very long time, and it's not giving me any information. What are we doing here? But either way, strawberry and rhubarb pie. It's a little interesting. I'm not a big. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not a big fruit beer guy because I do like them, but I'm very particular about what type of fruit beers I'm into. I think that because this isn't a milkshake beer, so it doesn't have any milk sugar in it or anything like that. It's more just a straight up sour ale with strawberry and rhubarb inspirations. So when they say it's inspired, it tells me that they may not have used actual full strawberries and rhubarb in the mash. It may just be, maybe not flavoring, but some sort of puree that they got, and then they put that in the mash. I'm looking it up right now to see if I can find out exactly what was put in it. But it's a sour ale, so it's going to be sour.
It's yummy.
Hopefully.
I'm good with it.
My guess is it's probably... I'm going to probably sit here and say it's going to be one of those sours that isn't like super puckery. Like there's going to be some sour to it, but it'll be more sweet.
Bitterish too towards with
so it's not going to be super...
Oh, the strawberry, maybe not. I was thinking like a blackberry, but I'm excited for this.
There is more than one Where's Barb, if you can believe it or not. So Hidden Spring Ale Works, it's got a 3.96 on Untapped, so we know it's going to be good. And everything they do is pretty much good. And yeah, it just says, it says here that it does have lactose in it. The can doesn't say it has lactose, but then again, I guess...
We could. I feel like they always sneak it in somewhere. I guess we could have just assumed
that it is. I don't know. I say we just pop it open and let's check it out. Because there's not a whole lot on here about it. But, oh, buddy. And
I'm curious if this is going to be like a bright red or just a pale...
I bet you... Oh, yeah. Well... It's actually not as red as I thought it would be.
No, this is pretty neutral. Which is surprising with the sours, and it doesn't have that crazy color. I remember those Warhead beers we did.
Yeah, and I think there are definitely some sour ales out there that they go heavy on the fruit or the fruit puree or the fruit flavoring, so it adds that level of color. Whereas if these guys did more of a, let's throw some of that puree in the mash, but focus on the ale.
One thing I definitely notice is that I got to clean my glasses better.
Yeah, oh yeah. No offense, but there's a lot of bubbles going on.
Oh,
here.
This thing is only bubbles.
Lots of bubbles.
A little bubbles. So in case you didn't know, bubbles inside the glass mean your glass is dirty.
But guess what? We at Fear and Beer
don't give a shit.
We don't give a fuck.
Don't care.
Sorry to all our baby listeners out there that can't hear swear words, but we don't care.
No, it is very sour off the nose.
Like, is honestly, like, no offense, but if you're one of those beer drinkers who gets super upset about people not cleaning their glasses, go be don't be a beer drinker. Be something else.
Yeah, go
just leave.
Buy me more glasses.
I mean, listen to us. Don't leave the podcast because we want you to listen to the podcast. But stop with that. Stop. Don't gatekeep beer. Gatekeep anything else. There's already gatekeepers. Everything else. Let's not gatekeep beer. But either way, I'm gonna take a swig at this bad boy. Oh, cheers. Ooh, I was wrong about the pucker.
Oh, yep. Oh, it's there.
Oh, that's there.
That thing just.
Oh, and this is not. This is not
it's
like
right here.
Yeah, this is not like this is
you
not.
Can feel it in your neck. Feel it behind your ears.
That's really. Believe it or not, this is good. Like this face is good when I make that face because I like pucker. I guess if that's weird.
Ooh,
like
I do like it. I mean, we're suckers for it. Like I love Warhead candies. Like I'm a glutton for punishment. I love it.
That's really good.
It is. I don't get it.
And you know what's funny? It was canned in October, so it was canned a few months ago at this point. And being that it has lactose in it, I was expecting it to kind of be a little flat.
Yeah.
Just because of the age, but it's held up unbelievably well.
Do you get a lot of strawberry? Or?
Yeah.
Do you? Okay.
I get a lot of strawberry cream.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, what are those things? Those cream
savers.
Cream savers. I get that a little bit, those strawberry cream savers with the sour on the back end.
Yep. I'm getting so much sour.
It's sour all over the place, but it's almost like it's not like I feel like with some fruit sours, the fruit is kind of buried by that sour mouthfeel, whereas this, I get a ton of strawberry. I don't get as much rhubarb, but again, I don't have too much rhubarb anything, so I really don't know what rhubarb tastes like.
It's good. I'm getting a lot of sour. So I think for me, when I get sour like that punches me in the mouth, it's hard for me to pluck out the flavors while it's still being so sour.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, that's
just hard for me to find that profile.
I think that's what I was trying to get at, is that like for some sours, it's easy to lose the flavor because it's just so sour and there's not a lot going on. Whereas ones like this, where you still get that pucker, but at the same time you still get the flavor profile. You can definitely get a lot of that strawberry. Again, don't really know what rhubarb tastes like because I haven't had too much rhubarb of anything. But I'm sure it's there. But it doesn't overpower you either way. It's not super sweet. It's not super sour. It's right there in the middle. And to be honest with you, I really do think that this is kind of like Hidden Springs. It's their it's their comfort zone. They're really, really good with sours. Like, I've never had a bad sour from
They
them.
definitely, that's their bread and butter.
I mean, it really is. I mean, and of course, you know, they may have a different opinion, but everything I've had from them, their sours are always fire. Like, they're always so good.
They know what they're doing, that's for sure. All right, so let's get into tonight's discussion, because this isn't like a top 10 list. This isn't a speculation map. This isn't anything like that. It's more of just a discussion. And I guess there's been a couple times where we've done something like this, and we've kind of, at the end of discussing one thing, we kind of vote either like not likely, likely, or most likely, more likely, I guess. It's kind of a 3-stage process, I guess. So I guess that's what we'll kind of do tonight, because we're going to kick around a couple different Netflix properties that are either in the picture of mainstream or are recent, or just something in that horror field that we feel like they could pluck from if they choose to. And being that I have the Stranger Things shirt on from us, we have the Where's Barb from Hidden Springs, I got the red lights on, I got Stranger Things playing. I guess we might as well start with Stranger Things, because I also think it is a discussion that's going to be pretty short-lived, because we don't have any source material to talk about. So as of right now, season 4, I mean, has been finished, I feel like, a year or so, because last February 14th, last Valentine's Day, they released a trailer, like a little teaser trailer that, spoiler, if you're a year late, showed, I think, Hopper out in Russia, and it was kind of like a From Russia with Love sort of feel. And
I don't remember, to be honest with you. It's been so long.
It's been a year since the teaser came out. I mean,
so I don't
it's
really
crazy.
remember what was in the teaser. But...
I mean, the last season 3, came out in 2019.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that was before
it's
COVID.
Weird. It's wild. So what we can look back at is HHN29. That is the second year Stranger Things appeared at the event in a row. And that house was definitely not as highly acclaimed as the previous one. The Stranger Things first house was, in my opinion, I really loved it. I liked going through it. I liked the set. It was a good story. You know, it was the Netflix property that was just like high on everyone's list at that time. And it was fun seeing the sets there with, like, you know, the maps around the house and the lights and the alphabet and stuff like that. And that was fun.
And I think what we said too, at least with the first few episodes we did of even this podcast, you and I were talking about the Stranger Things property and the houses and that sort of thing. And we know that particular house, that's the draw house. That's the one that you want to get all the normies in with. Because, like, you know, when I say normie, someone that isn't like a huge HHN fan, or they're not going for everything.
Jack.
Yeah, I mean, it's really because they hear that, hey, there's a haunted house that's based around something I really like.
Yeah,
and that's what draws people in. So that's kind of why I think they did like that 2-year back-to-back.
Yeah, it
was a big thing, big property, big show. And they probably wanted to show off this new partnership that they have with Netflix.
Yes,
by picking the best property at the time.
Yeah, and then a year later, HHN29, it was kind of like that 80s feel, so keep the train rolling.
Made sense
to bring it back.
Stranger
Things again, but this time the house fell a little short, and I think the reason behind that was, and I mean, maybe people liked it, I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan, because what they did was they smashed season 2 and season 3 together as just kind of like this big collective Stranger Things house, and it just came out a little convoluted, a little bit messy, and it was just tough. The tougher thing, I think, that forced them to do that was, we just talked about Stranger Things 3 released in the summer of 2019. I think it was July.
Yeah.
And that fall, in September, the house opened, which includes stuff from season 3. So Netflix worked with Universal, obviously, to show them certain things or tell them certain things that, hey, this is going to be in the show, you can include this in your house, whatever. So now that leaves us to looking towards this event, HHN31, and Stranger Things 4 still doesn't have a definitive release date, although it's anticipated that's going to be in the summertime again. So another July release, probably, unless they sneak it up into, like, I feel like that May slot is good as well, too, because it's kind of like, that's when the blockbusters kind of start coming out now at this point, like April, May. But I would say July is probably more likely than not the release for Stranger Things 4, which would put us in that same timeline where will they be able to pull enough resources to build a whole house? Maybe. I don't know if they can get a whole house because they didn't get a whole house with Stranger Things season 3.
And I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of these like IP houses, especially Netflix ones, they have to destroy everything that they build, right? Is that what he said?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Because they can't I guess my point is that I think
they'd be starting from scratch,
right? Because I think what they say with a lot of the original ideas, they can pull stuff from other previous houses and use those props again.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that he said that with a lot of these
Netflix
stuff in particular, they have to destroy everything after they're done. Like all the walls they build, all the props they build, they have to just throw it in a dumpster and destroy it.
That makes sense.
After the event. So they didn't retain anything probably that they built for it. So they would have to build brand new stuff from the new show.
But my thing with this is, if you want to talk about something that's like fresh on people's minds, and you have Stranger Things 4, as big as it is, happen in July, and you have Horror Nights in that fall, like, that's the perfect high. Because, like, obviously Haunting a Hill House did fine this year, but it's 3 years after the fact that it came out. Like, it's tough picking a property that's, like, hot now or hot, like, 6 months ago.
And to be honest
and it's a year and a half later, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that show.
Judging from the number of nights that we went, I don't think the line for that was as big as they expected.
It was big, but not like
because they put
crazy.
That was where they had Universal Monsters the year prior, and it's one of their larger sound. It's not a sound; it's a warehouse, but it's one of their larger areas with a larger queue.
Yeah,
I think they put it there expecting it to be that 80-minute, 90-minute wait.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was consistently over an hour.
Yeah, most weeknights it didn't get, like, ridiculous.
And let's be honest, part of that was COVID, people not coming out for that reason. Yeah. But I still think that it underperformed a little bit, like you were saying. And I think that may scare them away from doing things that
are a little bit
out there.
Past there. And, like,
I mean, I'm not saying that Hill House is out there, but as far as building a house regarding a property, that was not exactly the one I probably would have picked, but that's just me.
And I think that's going to be a kind of a reoccurring theme on our picks, because a lot of the things that we have on our list are things that are pretty, or were recently pretty high, but then do they want to invest in that because come September, is it still as...
Is it relevant?
Is it still in the forefront? Because Netflix is releasing so much so fast that, who knows. But, Stranger Things 4, again, we don't have much to pull off of because we haven't seen it. So we're basically just going off of the past and what has happened and stuff like that. So, what do you think about Stranger Things? Would you think not likely, or very likely?
I honestly, even though I don't want it to be, I think it is more. I don't want to say very likely.
Yeah.
But I think out of everything we're going to talk about tonight, I think it is the most likely.
Yeah.
Just because they have a new season planned for this year.
It's proven selling point.
I mean, obviously, I think you and I and a lot of the we'll call us crazies, a lot of us super HHN fans, especially the people that listen to our podcast, I feel like a lot of us don't necessarily want to see another Stranger Things house. Yeah. That means 3 out of the last 4 years they've done a Stranger Things house. Do I think that it would be a good idea? I think for their bottom line and for getting people in the park, it's a great idea.
Yeah, people are going to go for it.
For originality and for doing new things, it's a terrible idea. But again, what do they care more about? Getting people in the park, getting ticket sales,
or just having one house that's kind of whatever,
or going crazy out there with things. So yes, I think it's very likely. I think honestly, it is the most likely of all the properties that Netflix has released in the last year or going to be releasing within the year. That will eventually be, because I mean, who knows what the story's going to be? My guess is that they're jumping in the future a little bit.
And they kind of have to, because how fast these kids age and how much time it... Right. I mean, if this came out in 2019, they probably filmed it in 2017. Right. Because this thing takes forever to post.
And I don't know, I haven't seen... I don't follow celebrities like a lot of people do, so I don't know how old they've gotten, how big they've gotten. I know that in the things that they've been in, they obviously look a little bit older.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to get, if anything, you're going to get, like, late stage high school, college age, potentially 11. Like, you're going to get much further in the future. So this isn't a podcast episode to talk about the show, so we're not going to speculate on the show. So who knows what it'll end up being, but yes, long story short, my answer would be I think this is the most likely property we're going to see it Universal again.
Yeah, I think with Stranger Things, I'm just gonna go.
And it's boring. It's a boring answer,
Yeah.
but
I'm gonna go very likely.
yeah.
I think so. I mean, if they had not done the July to October turnaround previously, then I'd be like, no, that's way too soon. But they clearly have that relationship where they're okay with sharing their secrets, I guess.
Yeah,
and giving them enough info to build a house.
Right, and to be honest, they've already probably been talking about it if it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
Netflix has probably already provided stills.
And it's been done
other
forever.
things.
So it's not like they haven't shot this thing yet. They know what's in it.
Right.
So I guess we should move on to Fear Street. Now, Fear Street has been suggested by a lot of people.
We've talked about it too in the past. We both watched all 3 movies.
Yep.
I would say that I think we enjoyed all of them for the most part.
I really liked it. I think
you and I differed a little bit on which
we flipped
which
around.
movies that we liked the most.
Yes, because so for me, if I remember correctly, I think I liked.
Because one was 1990. No, what were the years?
It was the 90s.
1990 something or whatever, right? 1999.
Yeah.
And then it was 1978, and then it was 1666. Yeah.
I think I liked 70s.
Bless you.
Ah,
God bless you.
can't sneeze on the podcast.
Cut it out.
Got it. Snip it. I think my favorite was the 70s, then the 90s, and the 1600s, and I think yours flips.
I think I was flipped. I think I like the 1600s, the 90s, and the 70s.
Yeah.
I think that's how it went for me.
I love that.
It's been a while.
Slashery 70s.
I'll
eat it up. It's
again,
fun. It's not original, but I
think
don't
we probably
care.
said it in that podcast specifically that like it's not that we don't like one over the other. It's just we prefer that particular.
Mm-hmm.
I like that old style witchy like type of horror. You like more of the 70s straight up just slasher
Slash and
stuff.
gashing. Yep.
So it kind of fits that way. So I think with these properties as a house, I think you'd almost have to do like a combination hodgepodge. Throw everything.
Me too.
Throw everything in one house. I don't know if you can do like say, well, this year we're gonna do 99, and then next year we're gonna do 78.
Way too far
I think
out.
it's too. Yeah, I think at this point they all came out last year. I think you have to, for the most part, I think you have to do like a house that encompasses all of them.
Yes.
And I think it would be the most interesting way to do it. You just you start.
I would start
1660s
Yep.
and work your way up or work your way back. However you want to do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me, but I think that's the best way to help you build that house.
Yeah, and I think this, it sucks because I want to say very likely as well. I know we're not there yet, but I want to. But I think this house would make a much better house than Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Just being that, I mean, when you look at Stranger Things season 2 and 3, and you look at the house that they gave us, the sets weren't really that. It didn't translate well from what I remember. You know, we're watching the Battle of Starcourt Mall, and that setting is really cool, but it's just a big fight. So how can you incorporate a walking horror path through a fight scene between a giant monster? It's tough to do. Whereas Fear Street, where it's more ground level, serial killer slasher style, people trying to kill you. All the people that were cursed or whatever had really cool costumes, so like they stood out. That 90s era, that start where they're at it's all neon lighty, it's the mall, that's a perfect setting. When you go down to the slashers, like you're the outdoor cabins, you're in the woods, and you have like the big killer with, I think he was the chains that like the sack over. I forget what the killers looked like at this point, but I know they were like.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've sat down and watched them.
I should have rewatched. I was rewatching some other stuff, but
I had to binge watch an entire series last night, so
I was watching a different series as well. Trying to get caught up. I watched. I think the past week I watched Stranger Things season 3.
Yeah,
and
we'll get to a couple of the series, but him and I binge watched in one night.
You're welcome. We did our homework a little bit.
I mean, I guess you're welcome, man. I don't know if we owe you anything. But.
But yeah, I think that the Fear Street settings, the storyline, are so different but cohesive in the same time.
Yeah, it's one overarching story, and again, I think we talked about in the episode that not to get into the movie itself, but we loved how you used a lot of the same cast. They all kind of did different roles, but at the same time it tied in together. So I think you can do a lot of fun things in a house with that. And there's just so many set pieces too. The grocery store, the arcade. I think
the arcade was a good one. Yep.
And then of course that
witch trial,
era, that Salem era style thing.
Yeah.
Really
no,
cool.
and that it would make sense. I would hope, like if it continues the trend of like a Netflix property, out of all the ones we're going to talk about, I think that I would enjoy this one the most.
I think I'm with you. I think out of everything we're going to talk about, I think it's not my favorite property that I've watched on Netflix in the last year or two. But as far as a house is concerned, I think it's the most cohesive. I think it's the one that lends itself the most to a house.
Translate it
and I think it would just be the most fun of all of them. And yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the one I would want personally the most as a house.
Yeah.
But then of course, when you said you want to say very likely, but what would you actually say?
I will go with likely.
Yeah.
And I hope that Stranger Things and Fear Street flip flop, and they're a little bit different. But we'll see. I'm actually going to start taking notes. But why don't you kick off the next one? Because the next one I have is the one that you just binged.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about
and
that.
Hand up, I have not watched this one yet. I will watch this after I've heard everything.
Well, I think we'll talk about it in a second. But as far as Fear Street, real quick, I'm actually going to surprise you a little bit. I actually think it's not likely.
Okay.
And my only reasoning is that the movies came out last year. Just like we said before, because they have a new season of Stranger Things coming out, they've already done Stranger Things twice, and they know that it's a draw.
Yeah.
I can't see them deciding, let's go with Fear Street, although popular,
over Stranger Things.
And over other properties we're going to talk about because the relationship they already have with certain things. They did Hill House already. We'll get into what we're talking about in a second. But I think there's other things that they would do before they do Fear Street. Even though you and I both agree that I think Fear Street would be the better of the properties to do it, I just don't see them considering it as big a draw as something else.
Yeah.
That's just my thing. I think when you go into like a Newbury Comics, shout out to Boston, or a Spencer's Gifts, if those still exist.
I think so.
Just places like that.
Yeah.
What do you see? You see all these Stranger Things toys. You see all these little like
Dustins and
the toys and the Dustins and all these different things and the shirts and sweatshirts and everything else. We did our own shirt based on
buy it. You can purchase this now.
I just think that the popularity of this, even though it's been a couple of years since they released one of them,
still high.
It's still super high.
Yeah.
So I think that's just why I don't think that Fear Street's very likely. So yes, the next one we're going to talk about, and I binge watched this entire 7-episode series over the course of last night and today. It is Midnight Mass. It is the new show by Mike Flanagan from Hill House and Bly Manor fame. I'm not going to get into the show and its details specifically because I think we need to reserve that for an actual episode.
Yeah.
Potentially once you watch it to review it because, and this is maybe recency bias, I don't know, but I can say unironically, it's probably the best show I've ever seen on Netflix. And that's saying a lot.
That's a lot.
That's fire. That's a fire take.
That is big.
If you have not watched Midnight Mass yet, I'm not going to spoil anything, so please go watch it. Mike Flanagan has proven that he is probably one of the best horror/drama. I'll call it horror-rama because I think kind of what he bases his stuff on. Kind of like how Jordan Peele does a lot of social horror, a lot of taking social anxieties of the day and making horror movies out of it. Yeah. Mike Flanagan takes themes that we've dealt with in society, and maybe less social horror, but more just like overarching issues and things that people have been arguing about and talking about for
forever,
hundreds of years, and building a recognizable and relatively simple story, but also being really complex with it. So Midnight Mass, I'm not going to get into what happens because it's just there's so much that goes on in it. It's kind of like another show we're going to talk about where you're like, what the hell is going on for the first episode or so? But it kind of, once you start getting into it and start to understand what's happening, it kind of starts to open up to you and you're like, But I would say 80% of why I love the show so much is just the acting is some of the best acting I've ever seen on Netflix, on any streaming service. Yeah. I think you get a bad rap of, it's a streaming service, so it's
how good can it be?
It can't even be that good. I'm telling you right now, it's probably some of the best acting I've seen in anything, movie or otherwise, in the last couple of years. Hill House, for the longest time, was my favorite show I'd ever seen on Netflix. And Mike Flanagan did it again. This show is unbelievable. So as far as the house is concerned, it's going to be hard to talk about a lot of the set pieces without spoiling anything. Yeah. But just from watching it, I'm so glad I did, because I've been meaning to do it. And if you're like me, you're someone that like sees it. Oh, that came out like a year ago or 6 months ago, and I haven't watched it yet.
It's been sitting in the watch list for a year now.
I finally did it. But there's so many things in this, just set piece wise, that I think could lend itself really well to a house. I'll say this much: we like that outdoorsy, play with weather effects type feel.
Yeah, love that stuff.
This is a great property for that.
Gotcha.
There's an awesome character in it. I'll put it at that. That I think would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
As kind of like how we had
a creature character or like a person.
I'll give you that much. It's a creature character, but I don't want to ruin it any more than that. Yeah. But think of like the Tall Man, how good that was in Hill House.
It would be the
same idea like that. It's just, there's so many things you can do with it. It's kind of, I mean, story wise, it's kind of all over the place, but not all over the place.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, it's a really simple, well-known story that we've had for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But he does so many new things with it that I think it works so well, and there tends to be there's usually a tendency with some of these types of properties where it gets a little preachy.
Yeah.
And you think initially that it's going to get kind of preachy, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that it saves you with there. I'm a little worried you're going to watch it and go, it was okay, because I know how you feel about like the witch and something, and what's the other one that they did that you didn't like? The flower girl.
Midsommar.
Yeah. I love Midsommar, but I'll tell you this much. Again, I don't want to dwell too much on the show itself, but if you like Hill House, then you're gonna love this, I think.
Okay, I definitely gotta check it out.
But as far as the house is concerned, there's just so many. It's so hard to talk about it without spoiling the show. So please go watch the show if you haven't yet.
It's a little bit of a newer one.
It's a newer property. It's probably the newest property on the list.
It probably came out in the
no, it's not.
Early fall.
It's the second to newest one. Yeah, it came out like late last year, like right before Halloween, I think.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, just go watch it. Great set pieces.
Where would you put this as like a?
Oh, completely not likely.
Completely not likely.
Well,
okay.
I don't want to say that. So let me backtrack.
Okay.
Let me rescind my statement. I think Fear Street is the most not likely. Okay. I think this is
really the most not likely.
I do, and and the reason I say that is I think this one's a little more likely. I don't want to say it's definitely likely, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen, but I think there is a chance. And the reason I say that is, obviously, they have the relationship with Netflix. They've already done a Mike Flanagan property. Mm-hmm. They did Hill House.
Yep.
So there's that as well. Yep. So I think that because of that relationship, there might be a chance.
Kind of like the Jordan Peele effect that we think might be happening at some point.
I just don't know much. Like Stranger Things, does it have that popularity?
The staying
Is
power.
It going to be worth Universal's time to build a house? I think so.
Yeah.
Just because the visuals and the creature and everything else that goes on in the show, it just lends itself to such a good house.
Yeah.
There's so many unique things you can do with it that I think it should be a house.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of like not as unlikely as Fear Street, but almost as unlikely as Fear Street. And I'm sure I'm going to have...
Sneezing twice.
I'm sure it's a hot take for a lot of you, so I definitely tend to be the contrarian in the room, but that's just how I feel about it.
So you're saying likely?
I'm going to say...
In the middle?
I'm going to say in the middle.
Okay.
To make it easy, I'll say likely.
Okay.
But know that when I say likely, I mean probably not going to happen, but there's a chance.
So I haven't seen it, so I don't
want you to get... It's not fair for me to give an opinion.
Give it a thing. The only thing I will say about it is the way I tend to vote likely, not likely, most likely on these things for this instance is what I like to call as my like Facebook-o-meter.
Right.
Which is like Instagram, Twitter are definitely like horror-y oriented. So like I see a lot of stuff that pops up.
Yeah, do you see it on Facebook?
HHN, like if I'm on Twitter, HHN Twitter is always whatever Netflix property comes out. Oh, this is a house. This is a house. This is a house. Like, no, it's not. But when I'm on my normal Facebook, where it's just random friends and family, how many of like my normal
friends
people watching these things? And Midnight Mass isn't one that popped up on my Facebook-o-meter. Whereas when Stranger Things drops, every single person is like, OMG, ST, Stranger Thing. And Fear Street kind of got there a little bit because I saw a lot of just regular people commenting on it.
Yeah, and that's a fair way to
look at it. That's where I am kind of putting... putting it in that list, but I won't. I'll put not applicable for my rating.
Yeah, I think you need to watch the show for sure. And there's one on the list that I haven't watched yet, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not really going to give an opinion, but I think what benefits Stranger Things especially, and Fear Street to a point, is it has that retro nostalgia back to it, and a lot of people love that nostalgia, especially our generation. We're the generation of nostalgia. We're millennials, so we love that type of shit. So I think a lot of people like that. They want to see that. That's why there's a draw there. Whereas Midnight Mass, there isn't a whole lot of nostalgia with it. It's just a really well told story and a good show, which I think to me would lend itself to a good house. But of course, I'm not normal. I'm not like everybody else. So.
All right, so
I will say this much before we go on to the next one. My brother, who is not a big horror guy, loved the show too, or he's the one that recommended it to me. So
Midnight Mass.
Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. So next up, this one's gonna be a quick discussion as well because it's not out yet.
Oh.
And that would
this is. What is this?
The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Sorry. I'll let you continue. You know how my feelings are about this.
They're just trying to squeeze the. Is
this a Netflix thing?
It's on Netflix. Yep.
I didn't know that. Why did I think it was going to the movie?
It's going right to Netflix.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So it will be nice. It is just following the trend of Halloween. It's picking up after the first one and dismissing all the stuff in between.
Okay, so
it's 50 years later or whatever. So it's another one of those continuation stories. The sequel's never happened. This is the direct sequel. It's been 50 years, whatever. From the trailer, it looks like a bunch of, kids. Like it seems like what they're trying to do with like the shitty cities like Detroit or whatever, and they're like, oh, have a bunch of young kids move in here for cheap and turn it into like the new Portland or whatever.
It's
make
like gentrifying.
Make it the hipster town, and it's like, oh, it's cheap living, and you just kind of hope that culture like rejuvenates the town and it brings it back to its glory or whatever.
Right.
That's what it seems like in the trailer. A bunch of new kids moved to the old town where Texas Chainsaw Massacre took place. The original actress from Texas Chainsaw Massacre is coming back into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's just kind of rebooting it, much like Halloween did.
No, it's doing exactly what all of those other shows do or movies have done, where it's like, remember this person, remember that person, remember this. It's the member berries.
Everything did.
Member berries.
Everything is. Jurassic Park is doing the same thing too. So they're bringing back the cast. I don't think it'll be as successful as Halloween, but we can't comment on what it's going to look like with set design. But it is a Netflix property. We just had Texas Chainsaw happen last year, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house last year was more of a mashup of, there was pieces of 1, there was pieces of 2, there was pieces of the sequel, there was multiple Leatherfaces. It was a mashup house. So I'm just gonna end the discussion around this because we don't have much to talk about.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna say not likely because I just don't.
I'm gonna say very likely because because Universal hates me, and I know for a fact that they're gonna do this because they've already got all the props and they're like, shit, this is easy.
I think specifically, if they're sticking on that trend of one Netflix property,
they gotta get Chainsaw somehow into it, right?
I mean, I don't think they'll do, and I think especially because of and I think that the house was received better than we anticipated. I liked it more than I thought I would, because we both have low expectations.
I will concede that it was better than I thought it was going to be, but I had zero expectations going into it. So.
Exactly. But I think that was the perception amongst a lot of people going into it, so I don't think they would throw that to us twice, especially being like, hey, here's a sequel to a movie trailer that wasn't received well generally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go not likely. You're saying very likely.
I'm only saying very likely because I'm an asshole, but that's besides the point.
All right, so let's jump into another one that we both have discussed. I'm not texting on the job. I'm taking notes.
Oh, I'm checking my fantasy hockey. That's what I'm doing.
Archive 81.
Loved the show.
Amazing show.
Not as much as I loved Midnight Mass, obviously, but I think part of that's because with a lot of things with me, I'm kind of a narcissist. No, I don't say I'm a narcissist. I'm a hoity-toity film watcher and TV show watcher. So for me, if it's got unbelievably well done acting, I'm usually a sucker for that.
Okay.
Archive 81 struggled a little bit with some of the acting. Was a little. You could definitely tell there was some new faces
trying to get into it.
Yep. Very much a
Very indie
one
almost.
person. Yeah, it was a lot of indie feel. But the story was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I sat there saying to myself, like, what the hell is going on
Yeah,
the entire time?
Is this Twilight
what
Zone? Is this Jordan Peele? Is this...
It was really well done.
Stranger Things? Is it Hill House? Like, what the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, it's so confusing. But I do want to hear from you how you think this could work as a house. Because this is what I'm stuck on. Great show. I just don't know how well would it translate to an actual walkthrough on a house.
So how well? I don't think it would. It's tough. And I'm gonna try and do this like without spoilers as well. But there are two different worlds amongst us that is present, and the present I don't think would really work as anything, because the present isn't doing the stuff that he's watching.
It's the past.
It's the past. So I think if we did a house on it,
it would have to be
the present
that stuff.
wouldn't be present at all.
Right.
I think it would have to do with the hotel itself, with the satanic group, and in that sense that'd be pretty cool. You can go to the different houses. You could walk through the room while one of the ladies is peeling her face off. You could go down to the basement where they're having the ceremony. You can go through the room where they have the community hall where they're doing their chants or whatever. But I think that it wouldn't really translate well into a house. But I've been wrong before.
I would agree with you. I don't think there's enough in it. There's not enough, and again, without spoiling anything, there's not enough set pieces that really stand out to me. It's one of those shows that's psychological in a lot of ways. There's a little bit of found footage to it. It kind of balances between like found footage and traditional filmmaking. Story was real well done. The acting is so for me. But at the same time, there's just not enough like, remember that? Remember this from the show? Remember this from the show?
It was just a good storyline. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of.
It's very.
pizzazz.
I mean, and that's exactly it. There's not enough. There's not enough different or unique about the various things that happen in it.
Yeah.
To have different scenes in a house. Like I feel like it would be like kind of like the very much the same colored walls. And it's a lot of the same thing. And I could see it being done.
It's tough too. There wasn't like a main baddie. Like there wasn't like a big. I mean, there was like, but we only really saw it digitally. Like it's tough, and
even then there really wasn't that made baddie. There was you got like a little bit here and there, but there really wasn't a lot.
Which I think we're saving for Archive 82 or whatever I think, the sequel.
Well, right, and in that particular show, much like I think even Midnight Mass, a lot of the bad elements in it are the human aspects of it, like what humans are doing to each other more so than what the actual bad guy is, or what people will believe. So I'm going to rescind something. I do think this is as unlikely as Fear Street. I don't think Fear Street is completely unlikely, but I don't think it's any more likely than Archive 81 or vice versa. Just because I don't see it's, again, you made a good point. Like, you don't see a whole lot of people talking about it. Like, I didn't even know it was out until somebody mentioned it. Until someone was like, just told me face to face, hey, you should watch this.
Yeah.
I think it was your girlfriend, actually, Jamie, who said
it. We kind of all discovered it around the same time. She'll take credit for it. I will say that I took credit for it. Jimmy takes credit for it.
Either way, I put it on, and I got sucked in immediately.
It's a great show.
It's a really engrossing show, and it's definitely worth your time.
But it's just not...
I just don't see it functioning.
I don't think it translates well as a house.
HHN live action type house.
No, so I'm going to go not likely on this.
I'm with you on that.
Not likely. All right. So next up is a game. I just spoiled it. Not a game. A series.
It will be a game.
Squid Game. So...
I have not seen
Squid. So we're flip-flopped.
I have not actually sit down and sat.
So we're flip-flopped on Midnight Mass and Squid Game. So I'll take the lead on Squid Game. Because I remember this was a hot topic when it came out and when it released. Everyone all over was kind of like, oh, Squid Game, HHN, it makes perfect sense. It's going to happen. It looked so good. It's, for me, it's not a scary series. It's a very sad series. It's a very dark series. And it's a hard emotion to translate into a house, especially when the house's objective is to scare you, not make you like feel bad for these people at their wits' end, like competing and killing each other. Like essentially,
I haven't obviously watched it. I've heard that it's kind of like Hunger Games, but Korean, like Korean Hunger Games ish in a way.
And the thing too is like he wrote this years before Hunger Games. It just kind of never got approved, and it's just been kicked around, and it finally came to light. And it's unfortunate that It's unfortunate or fortunate. It's unfortunate that it came out after Hunger Games. It's going to be compared to that.
It's going to be compared to it,
even though there are differences, and his was... I mean, who knows? Who did it first?
Well, right.
But at the end of the day,
we're talking
Squid Game came out much after.
Right. You've got one that's very small and contrived in the sense that, like, you've got a group of people... And it's one small location that's competing for whatever. Again, I haven't seen it, so I don't know the entire story. Yeah. And then another one's a much larger world building type situation. So it's very different.
Yeah. So whatever I was talking about, it's hard to translate the emotion of Squid Game to a house, and it's not meant to be a house.
Primarily the setting. Yeah. And the characters, like those masked characters that I've seen pictures.
And that's the thing that fits really well though with a house is. We are correct. It's not a horror property. It's not scary. But fuck, these sets and the character designs are amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard they're great.
Because essentially what it is, without spoiling it, is like they are playing children's games.
Right.
So the designs of the sets are really cool. Like one of the sets is they're put into this gigantic playground. So it's almost like the size, the scale of it is true as to when you're a child. You know, when you're tiny, the slide looks like it's 100 feet tall.
Right.
As a 6-foot person, the slide is now actually 70 feet tall. It's the same scale. So would that be cool to go through as a house? Absolutely. There's stairs that they go up and down that are like pink and turquoise, and and that's bringing them pretty much from their quarters to the game rooms. Would that be a cool set piece? Absolutely. Are the characters, the costumes, the masks, the leader, are their costumes really cool, and would they play very well into us? Absolutely. But it's not a horror property. Right. It's not. There's nothing. I mean, okay, there is horrific stuff that happens to it, but it's not a scary series. It's there's some grotesque aspects of it, but it's not a horror series. There's no jump scares. There's no unknown creature.
Right. So I'll ask you this, because obviously I'm not going to be able to give like a legitimate rating or anything. Like I can't give you an actual idea of what I think, how likely it is. Yeah. But my question would be, would this work better as a scare zone potentially?
I don't think so. No. Because if it was a scare zone, I think all it would be seek and destroy.
True.
I don't think that you'd be able to build the sets up enough without people climbing all over them, without it becoming a distraction. Essentially, it would turn into the seek and destroy characters. Only they have the face shield on and a different colored suit.
Yeah, the evil Teletubbies.
They'd have like the guns and that's it.
Gotcha.
So I think as a scare zone, it wouldn't translate as well, because most of the fun sets were, if it were a house that you could play with, you wouldn't be able to play with it in a scare zone. You wouldn't have the up and down stairs. You wouldn't have the, there's plenty of games that they play that are fun. There's one of the games they play is just like, it's marbles. They're playing marbles in a replica of a town, like a poor town, and it would be cool to walk through those streets. Yeah. And you could put that into a house. You can't put that into a street as a scare zone.
Right. Makes sense.
I think it would be a great... I think you could make a very cool house about it, but I think it's not likely. I don't think that this series will translate into a house, because it's not supposed to be. Not everything is made to be. Had people not mentioned it, we probably would have left it off of the list, but because it was mentioned when it came out, I figured we'd at least address it and give our opinion on it. Yeah. But I would have just I would have left it off because it's not a horror property.
No, and I think that also that it being a foreign property too, which may not translate as well here.
Yeah.
I think, again, much like Korean horror, it's a very specific fan base that likes it. Like, I love a lot of that foreign horror.
But it's not...
But I don't think it translates well enough to a normie public
it's tough to sell that.
Like, I don't think it would pull enough people to make it worth it.
And had this not been on Netflix, nobody would have seen it.
Right.
But this
does... Like, if this is a Hulu property, no one would have watched it.
But this did hit my Facebook-a-meter. A lot of people talked about this. And it's...
I guess maybe that's why like judging everything solely based on that won't really work. But you're right. I think to a point, you can look at it. But it's one of those things where I think that was a novelty for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I had my teenage daughter was talking about this. How everybody in middle school is talking about this show.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you guys watching this show? It's not for kids.
This is not for you.
But, like, everybody was talking about it, kids or otherwise. And I think it doesn't always benefit to have something that, everybody talks about, but I think it's because it was kind of weird and a novelty in that sense.
It was very different.
People don't appreciate it for what it is. They kind of be like, oh, this is so weird and crazy.
Yeah.
And I think they take it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me looking at it a certain way, but
it was hokey, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good word for it. Hokey. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll go not likely on Squid Game, and then that brings us to our last property of the evening that we could have to discuss. I'm sure there's a couple more, but
there's probably a million.
Per usual, we've stretched this far enough, and I think that
we haven't watched every single thing on Netflix. I don't have that much time in my life.
I think that these ones that we discussed are probably the top of the list of what would we get. The last being Haunting of Bly Manor.
I remember the name of that movie too, by the way. We'll talk about that one too real quick.
Okay.
But go ahead. Continue.
But yeah, Haunting of Bly Manor.
You can tell by my reaction I wasn't a huge fan of Bly Manor. And I'm over here gushing over Mike Flanagan. But
yeah, no, this one I was definitely not as big of a fan of.
I think we've
talked about this before.
Multitudes of times about how we felt about the show.
I felt like this was more of a love story than it was like a horror.
I think the horror elements come from the darkness and I think almost like you said before, the Squid Games, it was more of an emotional show.
Yeah.
Like, not to say that like Hill House was emotional because it played off of that, like each character was a sin of some kind, and they all kind of had their own problems.
The steps of grieving.
Grief. So that one played on emotions too, but there was like legitimate horror elements in that show.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was a haunted house story.
I don't know if this one had as much horror elements.
No, this wasn't really like a haunting.
It was scary. And, I love me some Nell. I know it's not her actual character.
She's forever Nell.
I mean, she's forever Nell.
Yeah.
She's like my favorite. She's in You. She's so good.
Yeah, I love her and her.
I forget her name.
Giant goofy ears.
I love her, but I forget her name. It's so bad. But yeah, I just don't think there's enough there. Now, as far as like, will this happen? I'm gonna say very likely.
Okay.
Only because, again,
the connection.
They love to do like series.
Yeah, they did Stranger Things 1 too.
Stranger Things twice, and it was basically the same house because the show didn't change a whole lot. I mean, they put the kids in different situations, but they're still fighting the things from the Upside Down and the weird monsters and the Russians and all that good stuff from the 80s. I think if they did Hill House and it was relatively successful for the most part, what would stop them from doing the sequel?
Bly Manor, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think personally you and I weren't fans of the show. Yeah. But I think a lot of people enjoyed it. Yeah. Much like they enjoyed Hill House, and I think that would. This chair is so loud.
This chair's killing me. I got WD-40 that thing.
Jeez. But I think that because of that, I think it would behoove Universal to potentially do that one again.
Yeah. And it has been a while since I watched it. I think I rewatched it before HHN started. So
I tried to rewatch it. I can't get through it. And it was a struggle to get through the second season the first time.
It's a tough one. It is. And I'm not a fan of it. And I'm still excited for if and when they do the next Haunting of whatever. It doesn't put me off of Flanagan or the series. But just like that particular series is not my favorate.
I'm not one of those super fans who likes everything that somebody does.
Yeah,
there's always going to be hits and misses.
I didn't like it. That's what it is. So for this one, I'm actually going to go not likely.
Yeah, I can see the argument on both sides.
Just based on the difference in tone of the story. Yeah. Haunting a Hill House was a scary ghost haunted house story. Haunting of Bly Manor is more of like this like emotional, sad, lost in time story of lovers. Yeah. It seems like it was more of an emotional thing, and I don't know if that necessarily gets it excluded from HHN or not, but I think that it would make them hesitate because it would probably be a little bit harder to translate that. You can't just stick a tall man out there
because they don't have because Bly Manor didn't have that.
They would have to give you like a puppy at the start of the house, and then at the end just like take it away.
Yeah, there's not enough like memorable characters in the sense that, like, obviously the human characters are memorable, but there's no like creature or ghost,
lady in the lake or whatever. What's our called?
Bent neck lady. There's none of that. So there's not a lot you can do with it. So you're right. I can see from that perspective. I think they love to do things in twos, so you never know.
They do, and that's why I think we got to have this discussion, especially with all these other reoccurring things. I mean, we're talking about Stranger Things again. We're talking about Haunting Hell.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, you and I both think that out of everything, the most likely scenario is going to be Stranger Things again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely up there with Stranger Things and Fear Street. I'm really hoping Fear Street
I would
pulls it
love
out.
Fear Street,
but who knows? But that's our takes on the Netflix properties that we could possibly be seeing at HHN31. Timed this perfectly because it's towards the end of this episode.
I have one honorable mention.
Oh yes, let's talk about that before.
It's been forever since I've watched this movie, so I don't remember everything that happens in it. And I think it's one of those ones that kind of flew under the radar a little bit. It's called The Apostle, and it can be kind of a turnoff because it's a long movie. It's like 2.5 hours, I think. So it's a longer movie. It's again, I still think it's not your thing. It's older times. It has to do with like corrupt religion and devil worship and all these different things. There's a lot of things going on in it. Not a lot of creatures as far as I remember, but I could be wrong. I have to go back and watch it. But kind of like evil priest type stuff. It's different. I meant to rewatch it today and I never got a chance to, but I may go home and watch it tonight.
There you go.
But it's a long movie. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, that's an honorable mention. If anybody has seen it, let us know if you think that it's a good idea to talk about it more. But maybe do a killer reviews on it at some point. But it's a pretty. From what I remember, it was decent. But that was just my honorable mention. Okay. I'm sure there's a million other shows. Everyone's like, well, hey, talk about this, talk about that. Girl under the stairs. This, that, the other thing. You're like, we can't watch everything. We don't have the time.
I only have so much time.
I only have so much time in my life.
But yeah, so those are the properties from Netflix that we think that could possibly be here. I think we're both in the camp of saying we were probably like 100% expecting a Netflix property this year.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that partnership's too lucrative to not have something. And who knows? They could surprise both of us and come up with something we didn't even think about. Yeah. Because like I said before, there's plenty of stuff on Netflix, and Netflix is literally on the top of their game when it comes to original content. Mm-hmm. So, who knows? All right.
Well, join us next week. We're going to be going over top, and then we got 2 back-to-back weeks of top 10s. Because I actually started planning out a schedule for us.
This is all news to me too, guys. So I'm finding out as you find out.
Oh, perfect. Well, I got to put you on the Google calendar. We're going to go over top 10 IPs that we have not seen at HHN yet.
See? Didn't know that was happening.
But it's a good one.
It's a good one.
So we're going to have to scour a little bit and find out stuff. Because there's been so many because there's been so many IPs at HHN. So it's going to be like, And this isn't top 10 IPs that haven't been there by some sort of like standard. This is our top 10. This is the ones that we think would be more fun to see there.
All top 10 lists are personal. It's nothing to do with like any there's no objective rating system. It's just all subjective. So yes, top 10. I'm gonna need your help.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna need your help. Yep. So if you guys wanted to start sending us ideas of things that you'd love to see that we haven't seen before, shoot them our way because I'm probably gonna steal it to talk about it.
All right, well, until next time, this is Nick
and this is Seamus.
Happy haunts.
This is cursed. It's got a death curse.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.